Somewhere out past the edge of our solar system, Voyager 2 detected something moving through the darkness that was not a planet, not a star, and according to several viral posts online, not entirely explainable either. The story spread everywhere. Some versions even claimed it could be a fragment of alien technology drifting through interstellar space. Here is what actually happened, and why the truth turns out to be almost as strange as the rumor, just for completely different reasons. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because untangling this story means separating two very different things, a genuinely fascinating real discovery buried in Voyager's data, and a viral claim that, once you actually go looking for its source, falls apart almost immediately. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which parts of this story are backed by real NASA data, and which parts were invented for clicks, and you will have a simple method for spotting the same pattern the next time a viral space story shows up in your feed. Let's start with the spacecraft itself, because you cannot evaluate this claim without understanding what Voyager 2 is actually capable of detecting out there. Launched in 1977, Voyager 2 became the second human-made object in history to cross into interstellar space, doing so in November of 2018, following its twin, Voyager 1, which made the same crossing 6 years earlier. Today, Voyager 2 sits more than 12 billion miles from Earth, traveling through a region of space no other operating spacecraft has ever directly sampled. It carries a small handful of working instruments, including a magnetometer that measures magnetic fields, a plasma science instrument that measures charged particles directly, and a plasma wave subsystem that detects oscillations in the electrically charged material drifting through space. These instruments were never designed to take pictures or spot moving objects visually, since Voyager's cameras were shut down decades ago to conserve it. This rapidly shrinking power supply. Whatever Voyager 2 detects out there, it detects through subtle shifts in magnetic fields and plasma density, not through anything resembling a photograph. It helps to understand exactly how limited Voyager's remaining toolkit really is at this point in the mission. Out of the 10 original scientific instruments each Voyager spacecraft launched with back in 1977, only a handful still function today, and the mission team has had to make increasingly difficult choices about which ones to keep running as available power keeps shrinking year after year. The imaging cameras that once captured breathtaking views of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were deliberately powered down back when Voyager finished its planetary tour, since there was nothing left to photograph in the empty darkness of interstellar space, and every watt of power saved meant more years of scientific data from the instruments that remained active. But this is precisely why any claim describing Voyager watching something visually move through the darkness should immediately sound suspicious to anyone who understands the spacecraft's current, well-documented instrument configuration. That detail alone should immediately raise your eyebrows at the viral version of this story, because several versions circulating online describe Voyager catching something gliding through space with, in one widely shared post's own words, spooky fluidity, language that implies some kind of visual observation. Voyager 2 has no working camera. It physically cannot see anything glide, drift, or move in any visual sense whatsoever. Any claim describing Voyager watching something move through space in a visual way is describing something the spacecraft is not equipped to do, full stop. So where did this rumor actually come from, and is there any real data underneath it? Tracing the claim back, it appears to originate from a blog post rather than any NASA press release, scientific paper, or Jet Propulsion Laboratory statement. That post describes a mysterious wave or ripple passing through space, first suspected to be a shock wave from a distant supernova or a stellar flare, before claiming the signal did not match any known pattern. It goes on to speculate that Voyager might have detected a rogue plasma structure, or, as the post itself puts it, possibly a fragment of extraterrestrial technology. It even attributes a quote to Dr. Suzanne Dodd, Voyager's real actual project manager at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, suggesting that the rules might be different out here. There's a real problem with this. That quote does not appear in any verifiable NASA statement, press release, or interview transcript connected to this specific claim. Dr. Dodd is a real scientist who has given real interviews about Voyager over the years, but attributing an unsourced, dramatic quote to a real named scientist without any verifiable original source is exactly the kind of move that should make anyone pause before sharing a story like this further. This particular version of the story has also been repackaged across dozens of different video titles and channels, each one using nearly identical phrasing, nearly identical framing, and the exact same unverified quote, which is itself a telling sign. Genuine, independently verified scientific discoveries typically get reported with slight variations in wording, as different outlets do their own reporting and interview their own sources, when you instead find dozens of separate. While we are separating verified science from unsourced internet rumors, If that kind of careful fact-checking is what you actually want from a space and science channel, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already, because the real story hiding underneath this rumor is genuinely worth knowing. Here's what Voyager 2 has actually verifiably detected out in interstellar space, and it does not require any alien technology to be remarkable. Both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have used their plasma wave instruments to measure real, documented oscillations in the density of interstellar plasma, the thin soup of charged particles that fills the space between stars. Researchers analyzing this data found that plasma density in the region immediately surrounding our solar system appears to increase the farther the spacecraft travel from the edge of the Heliosphere, the bubble of charged particles blown outward by our sun. This was a genuinely unexpected finding when it was first published, since scientists had generally expected interstellar density to behave differently. And it represents an actual large-scale feature of the space surrounding our solar system that nobody had directly measured before Voyager provided the data. The way scientists actually detect these plasma oscillations is itself worth understanding, because it explains why this real discovery can sound almost as strange as the fabricated version, once you describe the mechanism plainly. Voyager's plasma wave instrument does not directly sense the density of surrounding particles the way a thermometer senses temperature. Instead, it listens for natural oscillations, essentially a kind of electrical ringing, that occurs when the plasma surrounding the spacecraft gets disturbed, often by something as simple as a burst of solar activity from our own sun rippling outward and reaching Voyager years after it first erupted. By measuring the specific frequency of that ringing, researchers can calculate the density of the surrounding plasma with remarkable precision, essentially using the universe's own physics as a built-in measuring instrument. When multiple readings, gathered years apart as the spacecraft continued drifting outward, kept showing rising density figures instead of leveling off or declining, that consistent trend is what caught researchers' attention and turned into a genuinely notable scientific finding. On top of that, Voyager's magnetometer readings have picked up real, ongoing fluctuations in the magnetic field structure of interstellar space, patterns that help researchers understand how our sun's magnetic influence blends into and interacts with the surrounding galactic magnetic field. Interstellar space is not the smooth, empty void many people picture. It is turbulent, uneven, and filled with plasma waves, magnetic ripples, and shifting particle densities that Voyager's instruments are uniquely positioned to measure, simply because nothing else humanity has ever built has traveled far enough to sample this region directly. In other words, the actual verified science already contains something genuinely strange and worth talking about. Interstellar space turning out to be far more dynamic and structured than older models predicted, without needing to invent an unsourced quote about alien fragments to make it interesting. It is worth pausing here to understand why claims like the viral version of this story spread so easily in the first place. Voyager sits at an almost perfect intersection of ingredients that make for irresistible viral content, genuine scientific mystery, an almost unimaginable distance from Earth that make independent verification difficult for casual readers, and a spacecraft old enough and famous enough that most people already have an emotional attachment to its story. When a vague, real scientific finding, like an unexpected plasma density gradient, gets filtered through a blog post looking for engagement rather than accuracy, it is remarkably easy to dress up a genuinely interesting but mundane data point using dramatic language about gliding movement and hints of alien technology, especially when the original scientific paper behind the claim is technical enough that most readers will never actually check it. There is also a simple incentive structure worth acknowledging honestly. A headline describing a subtle rise in interstellar plasma density, however genuinely significant to researchers studying the structure of our galactic neighborhood, is never going to generate the same instant curiosity as a headline suggesting a spacecraft might have detected alien technology. Content built around the second framing tends to spread faster, get shared more often, and keep viewers watching longer, which creates a constant temptation to nudge real, modest findings toward more sensational-sounding territory. One exaggerated word, choice at a time, until the original, accurate finding is barely recognizable underneath all the added drama. This pattern is not unique to Voyager either. Genuine scientific findings involving distant spacecraft, unexplained astronomical signals, or edge-of-knowledge physics get run through this same transformation constantly. A real, modest technical discovery gets rewritten with invented quotes, dramatic framing, and a vague implication of extraterrestrial involvement, because that version generates far more clicks than an accurate description of a plasma density measurement ever could. Recognizing this pattern is honestly one of the more useful skills you can develop as someone who consumes space and science content online, because it lets you separate the genuinely exciting real discoveries, and there are plenty of them, from the manufactured excitement built on top of a real discovery's name recognition alone. None of this is meant to take away from how genuinely remarkable Voyager 2's real achievements actually are. This is a spacecraft built using technology from the 1970s, running on a power source that loses a small amount of usable electricity every single year, currently drifting through a region of space so remote that its own radio signals take more than 18 hours just to reach Earth at the speed of light. And despite all of that, it is still actively contributing new, previously unknown information about the structure of the space surrounding our entire solar system. Information that quite literally could not be gathered any other way, since no other instrument in existence has ever traveled far enough to measure it directly. Consider what it actually took to get this data at all. Engineers working today on the Voyager mission are often decades younger than the spacecraft itself, meaning they had to learn programming conventions and documentation styles from an era before they were born, simply to keep interpreting the readings. These aging instruments continue to send home every single plasma wave. Measurement discussed in published research represents years of patient monitoring, careful calibration, and painstaking analysis by scientists working with a machine that offers no possibility of in-person repair or upgrade, ever, under any circumstance. That context alone makes the real discoveries buried in Voyager's data considerably more impressive than any invented claim about alien fragments could ever hope to be. So here is the honest, complete picture. Voyager 2 did not catch anything gliding through space in any visual sense because it has no functioning camera capable of doing so. There is no verified NASA statement describing a mysterious moving object, and the dramatic quote attributed to Voyager's real project manager does not appear to come from any traceable, verifiable source. What Voyager 2 has actually done is quietly help reveal that interstellar space is more turbulent, more structured, and more scientifically active than older models assumed through real, published measurements of plasma density and magnetic field behavior, gathered by an almost 50-year-old spacecraft that nobody expected to still be working this long after launch. If a future measurement genuinely does turn up something unexplained in that data, it will come the same way this discovery did, through a peer-reviewed paper, named researchers, and specific published numbers, not through an unsourced quote sitting inside a blog post with no citation trail to follow. That real story does not need alien fragments or spooky fluidity to be worth your attention. A machine built before most of the internet's population was even born is still expanding human knowledge of the galaxy, one carefully measured plasma wave at a time, from a place so remote that everything it teaches us has quite literally never been learned any other way. That is not a rumor. That is simply what Voyager 2 has been doing this entire time, patiently, honestly, and without any need for embellishment, a genuinely remarkable achievement that somehow still gets overshadowed by a version of events nobody can actually trace back to a real source. If you appreciate a channel willing to trace a viral claim back to its actual source instead of just repeating whatever sounds the most exciting, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because there is a lot more real Voyager science still worth covering. And we plan on getting to every bit of it, one verified finding at a time.